June 13, 1944. Late afternoon. Normandy, just south of Carenton. The air is heavy with the smell of crushed grass, diesel fumes, and wet earth. A Sherman tank idles at the edge of a narrow sunken lane, its engine coughing low and impatient, the metal hull ticking as it cools under a weak, overcast sun. Ahead of it rises a wall of green, thick, ancient, and impossibly dense. Leaves glisten with rain. Roots claw into the soil like buried hands. Somewhere beyond that hedge, unseen, a German machine gun opens up. The rounds snap and crack through the foliage, chewing bark and leaves into shrapnel. Inside the tank, the crew flinches as the impacts drum against steel. The driver tightens his grip. The commander swears under his breath. They cannot see the enemy. They cannot go forward. And if they try to climb that hedge, they will die. You can almost hear the engine straining in frustration. A powerful machine reduced to immobility by something that looks, at first glance, like farmland. This is the Bokage of Normandy. Not a battlefield drawn on maps, but a living trap grown over centuries. Each hedgerow is not just bushes, but a raised earthen embankment packed hard by time, reinforced by roots as thick as wrists, sometimes thicker. Stone hides beneath the soil. Trees grow out of it at odd angles. The lanes between them are narrow, sunken, and blind. For the American soldiers fighting their way inland from the beaches, this terrain is suffocating. It blocks vision. It channels movement. It turns every advance into a gamble with death. The Sherman tank was never meant for this. Designed for speed, numbers, and maneuver, it now crawls forward yard by yard, forced to fight the land itself before it can fight the enemy. To cross a hedgerow, the tank must climb it. The moment its nose lifts, the thin armor of its underbelly is exposed, an open invitation. German Panzerfaust teams wait for that exact moment. One shot, a flash, a hollow metallic boom, then fire, smoke, screaming, and silence. All across Normandy, the same scene repeats. Infantry press forward, hugging the dirt, pinned down by fire they cannot locate. Tanks roll up to support them, only to stall at the hedgerows like beasts trapped at a fence. When the tanks stop, the infantry suffers. When the infantry cannot advance, the tanks are blind and vulnerable. Progress slows to a crawl measured in fields, not miles. A few hundred yards can take an entire day, sometimes more. The German defenders know this ground intimately. They have had weeks to prepare. They dig foxholes into the reverse slopes of the hedgerows, invisible until the last second. Machine guns are sighted to rake the narrow gaps between fields. Mortars are pre-registered. Anti-tank teams move unseen through hidden cuts in the hedges, appearing where the Americans least expect them. Every field becomes a killing ground. Every hedge, a fortress. The soundscape of the bocage is relentless. Artillery thumps in the distance, a low, constant thunder. Small arms fire crackles sharply, echoing in the confined lanes. Tank engines roar, then sputter, then idle again. Commands are shouted, lost, repeated. The smell of cordite mixes with manure and crushed greenery. It is summer, but it does not feel warm. It feels close, claustrophobic. American officers begin to realize the truth with growing dread. The breakthrough they expected after D-Day is not coming. The beaches were only the beginning. This terrain is stopping an army. Maps offer no solutions. Air power helps, but only so much. Bombs can flatten villages, but they cannot neatly peel away hedgerows without turning the battlefield into chaos. Artillery pulverizes fields, yet the roots remain, torn but stubborn, still capable of stopping tracks and exposing bellies. Engineers try explosives. Sometimes it works, often it does not, and every delay costs lives. The Shermans bear the scars: bent fenders, blown tracks, blackened hulls abandoned in fields that look peaceful from a distance. Crews name their tanks, talk to them, curse them, plead with them. These machines are not just steel, they are lifelines. When they fail, men die. When they stop, fear spreads. You can feel morale tightening, like a wire pulled too far. Soldiers whisper the same question in different ways. How do you fight an enemy you cannot see, in terrain you cannot cross, with weapons that suddenly feel wrong for the war you are in? By mid-June, the advance has slowed to a dangerous pace. Commanders worry aloud about exhaustion, about casualties, about time. The Germans are bleeding, yes, but they are holding. Every hedgerow taken is paid for in blood, and there are thousands more ahead. Normandy is becoming a maze with no obvious exit. And somewhere among the stalled columns and frustrated crews, among men who smell oil and earth and fear every time they edge forward, a quiet, unsettling realization begins to form. The problem is not just the enemy. The problem is the ground itself. June 15, 1944. Early morning. A mist clings low to the Norman fields, softening the edges of everything it touches. Tanks sit nose to hedge again, engines rumbling quietly, crews smoking and waiting for orders that feel increasingly hollow. The hedgerows loom unchanged, indifferent to the steel and fire thrown at them. Somewhere in this uneasy pause stands Sergeant Curtis G. Cullen. Cullen is not a famous engineer, not a West Point graduate, not a man groomed for innovation. Before the war, he drove a taxi in New York City. He knew traffic, congestion, obstacles. He knew what it meant to find a way through when the street ahead was blocked. Now he wears Army green and serves with the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron. His job is observation, movement, adaptation. And as he watches another Sherman strain uselessly against a hedgerow, something clicks. He does not see a wall of greenery. He sees a problem of angles, of leverage, of force applied in the wrong direction. The tank lurches forward, its tracks biting into the dirt. The nose rises. For a split second, the underside is exposed. A German rocket flashes from the hedge line. The explosion rocks the tank backward. Smoke pours out. The crew bails, coughing, lucky this time. Others have not been. Cullen stares at the hedgerow's base, at the way the roots grip the earth, at how the tank's smooth, flat front plate simply pushes against it, riding up instead of cutting through. He thinks of snowplows, of wedges, of teeth. The idea is crude, almost embarrassingly simple. What if the tank did not climb the hedge at all? What if it bit into it instead? Nearby, down on the beaches, the remnants of German steel obstacles still lie scattered, twisted girders, angular, ugly, designed to rip open landing craft. Iron crosses of metal, half buried in sand and mud. Scrap, waiting to be cleared away. Cullen imagines them welded to the front of a Sherman, not as armor but as blades. He sketches the thought quickly. 4 prongs, sharpened points, something that could punch into the earthen bank, split roots, tear open a path. Something that would keep the tank level as it moved forward, its belly protected, its gun stable. It is not elegant, it is not tested, but war does not wait for elegance. Cullen brings the idea to his superiors. At first, it sounds like madness. Welding beach junk onto tanks in the middle of a campaign. There are regulations, chains of command, standardization. Tanks are not supposed to be modified in the field by sergeants with torches. But the reports from the front are grim. Casualties are mounting. Progress is unacceptable. And the problem of the bocage has no solution anyone can point to. Word travels upward, slowly at first, then faster. The idea reaches officers who are desperate enough to listen. It reaches General Omar Bradley, commander of U.S. First Army, a man watching his timetable slip away field by field. Bradley does not care where the idea comes from. He cares whether it works. Permission is granted. In a makeshift workshop near the beaches, engineers and tank crews get to work. Torches hiss, sparks fly. The smell of burning metal cuts through the salt air. Steel obstacles are dragged in, cut apart, reshaped. The prongs are welded onto the front of Sherman tanks, forming brutal tooth-like protrusions. The men nickname them Rhinos. The name sticks. There is no manual, no test range. The first trials happen in the fields themselves. A modified Sherman rolls forward toward a hedgerow. The crew is tense, braced for the familiar jolt and lift. But this time, as the tank advances, the steel teeth strike low. They dig in. Roots snap with sharp wooden cracks. Earth splits. The hedge shudders, then gives way. The tank punches through in a violent burst of soil and greenery, emerging into the next field level, stable, gun already swinging. For a moment, no one speaks. Then someone laughs, someone else shouts. Infantrymen stare in disbelief. The impossible wall has been breached, not climbed, not blasted, but cut open. The tank has stayed low. Its belly has remained hidden. Its momentum has carried it forward instead of up. Word spreads like electricity along the front. Crews line up, begging to have the cutters welded onto their tanks. Engineers work around the clock. Beach obstacles disappear, reborn as weapons of movement. By late June, hundreds of Shermans are being fitted with Rhino blades. It is not enough to change a few tanks. The terrain demands transformation at scale. German soldiers begin to notice something is wrong. Fields that once felt secure are suddenly violated from unexpected angles. Tanks appear where none should be able to go. The familiar rhythm of defense, wait for the tank to climb, then strike, breaks down. The Americans are no longer predictable. But adaptation cuts both ways. The Germans are quick to respond. New ambushes are planned. Mines are laid deeper. Panzerfaust teams reposition. The bocage is still deadly. The Rhino does not make tanks invincible. It only gives them a chance. And as the modified Shermans rumble forward, tearing open the green walls of Normandy, another truth becomes clear. Breaking the hedgerows is not the end of the problem. It is the beginning of a far more violent phase of the battle. Late June 1944, the bocage no longer feels immovable. It feels wounded. The modified Shermans move differently now. They do not hesitate at the hedgerows. They lower their steel teeth and drive forward with purpose, engines roaring, tracks biting hard. The sound is unmistakable, a tearing, splintering violence as roots snap and soil erupts. Green walls collapse inward, swallowed by steel and momentum. Tanks burst through into open fields like predators breaking cover, guns already tracking, infantry surging behind them. For the men inside the tanks, the change is immediate and visceral. No more blind climbs, no more exposed bellies. The hull stays level, the gun stays steady. The commander can fight instead of prey. The tank is no longer a trapped animal. It is a weapon again. German defenders feel the shift before they fully understand it. Ambushes mistimed. Panzerfaust shots fired too late or at the wrong angle. A hedge that should have been a shield becomes a liability as American armor crashes straight through it, bypassing prepared kill zones. Machine gun nests on reverse slopes are suddenly outflanked. Fields that once took hours to clear fall in minutes. The rhythm of the battle accelerates. Infantry units begin to trust the tanks again. They follow closer, using the churned earth and shattered hedgerows as cover. Coordination improves. When a Sherman punches through, riflemen pour through the gap, grenades already flying. German positions unravel not because they are weak, but because they are no longer certain where the enemy will come from. The bocage had favored defense, patience, and invisibility. The Rhino favors aggression. Reports filter up the chain of command. Advances measured in hundreds of yards become advances measured in miles. The front is still brutal. This is not a breakthrough to open country yet, but the paralysis is gone. The Americans are moving with intent, with pressure, with options. The land that once dictated every move is losing its authority. German officers take notice. They order deeper defenses. They mine hedgerows more heavily. They adapt tactics, pulling back to secondary lines, trying to reestablish control. But adaptation takes time, and time is the one thing they no longer have. Every field lost now costs them more than ground. It costs cohesion. By early July, the Rhino cutters are everywhere along the American lines. Not every tank has one, but enough do to change the character of the fight. The innovation spreads without ceremony. There are no speeches, no medals handed out in the fields, just welders, steel, and necessity. Curtis Cullen does not watch from a command post. He is still there, close to the fighting, watching the machines he helped transform do what they were meant to do. He does not call it genius. He calls it common sense. a way through a traffic jam, a problem solved with the tools at hand. The real test comes not in a single dramatic moment, but in accumulation. Field after field, village after village. The Germans are pushed back not by a single blow, but by relentless pressure that never quite lets them reset. The bocage, once their greatest ally, becomes unreliable terrain, still dangerous, still deadly, but no longer absolute. And then, in late July, the Americans are ready for something bigger. Operation Cobra begins under a sky ripped open by bombers. Thousands of aircraft roar overhead, dropping tons of explosives along a narrow front near St. Lo. The ground shakes. The air burns. When the smoke clears, American armor and infantry surge forward through shattered defenses. The hedgerows here are already broken, torn apart by bombs and steel teeth alike. The Rhino tanks move fast, punching through what remains, exploiting gaps before the Germans can react. This time, the line does not stabilize. German units retreat in disarray. Communications fracture. Commanders lose control. The American advance spills out of the bocage and into more open country, where speed and numbers matter most. The long-sought breakout is real. Normandy is no longer a cage. The Rhino cutter does not win the campaign by itself. No single invention ever does. But it removes a chokehold. It frees an army to fight on its own terms. It turns terrain from a master into an obstacle again. Dangerous, yes, but manageable. After the war, there are no parades for welded steel teeth. The story fades into footnotes and technical reports. Curtis Cullen returns to civilian life, to ordinary roads and ordinary traffic. The beaches of Normandy are cleared. The hedgerows grow back. But for a few critical weeks in the summer of 1944, a taxi driver's way of seeing the world, of looking at a blockage and asking how to push through instead of climb over, changes the course of a battle. Not with brilliance or grand strategy, but with force applied at the right angle. And that is the unsettling truth of war. Sometimes the difference between stalemate and momentum, between bloodshed and breakthrough, is not a new army or a new plan, but a simple piece of steel, welded on by men who refuse to accept that the ground itself has won. August 1944, Normandy is no longer a maze, it is a corridor. American columns roll through ground that only weeks earlier had swallowed divisions whole. The hedgerows still stand in places, ragged, torn, scorched, but they no longer dictate the pace of the war. Tanks move with confidence. Infantry advances with momentum. The sound of engines now carries forward, not back and forth in frustrated starts and stops. The campaign breathes again. The German army feels it everywhere. What had once been a controlled withdrawal becomes a scramble. Units pull back too fast or too slow. Supply lines fray. Fuel runs short. Orders arrive late or not at all. The bocage, once their greatest natural defense, has failed them at the worst possible moment. The Americans have learned how to break it, and they are not slowing down. By mid-August, the Falaise pocket begins to close. German forces are trapped, crushed between converging Allied armies. The destruction is immense. Thousands of vehicles litter the roads. The air reeks of burning fuel and cordite. Horses lie dead beside trucks. Tanks sit abandoned, out of fuel or disabled, their crews long gone. Normandy has become a graveyard of steel. No one credits a single invention for this collapse. History never works that way. Air power, logistics, numbers, leadership all matter. But among the countless factors that allowed the Allies to turn landings into liberation, one quiet truth remains. The breakout would have come later. It would have cost more lives. It would have bled longer if the hedgerows had continued to hold. The Rhino cutter did not make headlines. It did not carry a famous name. It was not born in a laboratory or approved by a committee after years of testing. It emerged because one man looked at a problem from outside the rules and refused to accept that impossible was an answer. Curtis Cullen does not become a legend. After the war, he returns home. He lives an ordinary life. He does not stand before crowds or give interviews about changing history. Like many wartime innovators, he fades back into anonymity, his contribution absorbed into the massive, impersonal machinery of victory. But the tanks remember. In photographs taken after the breakout, you can still see them. Shermans with jagged steel teeth welded to their noses, paint scraped raw metal scarred from roots and stone. Ugly, improvised, effective. They look less like parade machines and more like tools, shaped by the work they were forced to do. And that is what they were. War is often remembered through grand moments, beaches stormed, cities liberated, flags raised. But it is also decided in quieter ways, by men who notice small details under pressure, by solutions born not from doctrine, but from desperation, by ideas that arrive not because they are elegant, but because they are necessary. In Normandy, the Allies did not defeat the bocage with brilliance alone. They defeated it by refusing to let the land decide the outcome, by changing the shape of their machines instead of demanding the world change for them. The green walls fell, the tanks rolled on, and the road to Paris, once blocked by centuries-old earth and roots, finally lay open.